Hello everyone, I'm Brazen Eagle, and thank you for joining me here. So today from the New York Times, fertility rate in the US hit a record low in 2018. The rate of births fell again last year according to new government data, extending a lengthy decline as women wait until they are older to have children. So from Washington, the fertility rate in the US fell in 2018 for the fourth straight year, extending a steep decline in births that began in 2008 with the Great Recession, the federal government said on Wednesday. There were 59.1 births for every 1,000 women of childbearing age in the country last year, a record low according to the National Center for Health Statistics. The rate was down by 2% from the previous year and has fallen by about 15% since 2007. In all, there were 3.79 million births in the country last year, the center said in its release of final birth data for 2018. Fertility rates are essential measures of a society's demographic balance. If they are very high, resources like housing and education can be strained by a flood of children, as happened in the post-war baby boom years. If they are too low, a country may find itself with too few young people to replace its workforce and support its elderly, as in Russia and Japan today. It's all about caring for someone else. In the US, declines in fertility have not led to drops in population, though, in part because immigration has helped offset them. The country has been living through one of the longest declines in fertility in decades, nearly 50 years. Demographers are trying to determine whether it is a temporary phenomenon or a new normal driven by deeper social changes, which we all know it's driven by deeper social changes. Fertility rates tend to drop during difficult economic times as people put off having babies and then rise when the economy rebounds. That's what happened during and after the Great Depression of the 1930s, but this time around, the birth rate has not recovered with the economy. A brief uptick in the rate in 2014 did not last, and why would it? It is time for me to believe, or it's hard for me to believe, that the birth rate just keeps going down, said Kenneth M. Johnson, a demographer at the University of New Hampshire. Mr. Johnson estimated that if the rate had remained steady at its 2007 level, there would have been 5.7 more million births in the country since then. Yeah, I would like to know how many births we would have had if everything remained mostly the same since 1970. The decline in 2018 was broad, sweeping through nearly all age groups and reflected a long, gradual shift in American childbearing till later in the mother's life. The rate fell most steeply among women in their teens, down 7.4% from the year before. Births to teenagers have fallen by more than 70% since 1991, almost 30 years ago. Women in their 20s had fewer babies last year as well. Historically, women in their late 20s usually had the highest fertility rates of all, but they were overtaken in 2016 by women in their early 30s, reflecting a trend of later childbearing throughout American society. The only age groups that recorded increases in fertility rates in 2018 were women in their late 30s and 40s, the best time for women to have children with some form of autism. That's great. It's clear that the traditional age fertility pattern that held for baby boomers and Gen X women is shifting, said William Frey, senior demographer at the Brookings Institute. He noted that more than half of women who had children in their late 30s last year had college degrees, according to the new data, a much larger proportion than among women who had children in their late 20s. That could be a clue that deeper social forces are at work. A generation of millennial women appears to be delaying having children even longer than Gen X women and baby boomers did to get a firm footing professionally and financially before starting a family. The data suggests that people want to establish themselves before having children, said Allison Gemmell, a demographer at Johns Hopkins University. They also want to make sure that they have adequate resources to raise quality children. Other sweeping social changes have accompanied the delay in childbearing. New data from the Census Bureau show that the median age for first marriage is now 28 for women and nearly 30 for men. In 1970, almost 50 years ago, the median ages were 21 and 23, Mr. Frey said. This is a far cry from the 1950s or even the 1980s and 90s, he said. The fertility decline may seem alarming, Professor Gemmell said, but a lot about it is good. Okay, there should be a lot, right? Teen pregnancy is way down, as are unintended pregnancies, which had long set the U.S. apart from other developed countries. Is that it? That doesn't seem like a great benefit from having a drastically lower fertility rate. She noted that American women generally do have children eventually, and that childlessness is waning. By her mid-40s, the typical woman has had 2 children, she said. Well, if you want to take a risk with, children on the autism spectrum, good luck. Is it a permanent shift? We just don't know yet, Professor Gamil said. If it is, she said, there might be implications for society at large, say for Social Security funding, but I don't think we're there yet. Yeah, just give us 15 years. We're going to be in a crisis within 15 years because of Social Security and how we can't support it. But anyway, so the fertility rate in the U.S. is down again for the 4th straight year in a row and has been declining ever since the 1970s. For example, this is the chart they're probably referring to. As you can tell, during the Great Depression, during it, and a little bit after, births were down. 1970. Something happened in 1971, 72, where the birth rate just dropped way below replacement levels. And it almost didn't come back until like 1991 for maybe 1 year, maybe a year, and maybe 1 year in, 2014? The fertility rate has been basically dropping, or has had a very, very steady decline since the early 1970s. Now, what happened in the 1970s? I've got a couple articles here detailing why the fertility rate has dropped since then. What is the key connection between these next couple articles? Women's empowerment and the overpopulation debate from 2013. Giving women control over their reproductive health and access to job opportunities will help reduce the global birth rate and lessen the strain on our natural resources. Or how about this one? Women's rights are key to slowing down population growth from 2011. Educate girls to stop population soaring. The longer girls stay at school, the fewer children they have, professors say, from 2008, more than 10 years ago at this point. What is this? Secondary education for females, a primary way to prevent overpopulation from 2011. What do all these things have in common? Women's access to higher education. Now, let's be real. Can men have babies? No. Only women can have babies. So, it's not men's fault for having a low birth rate. It's the women not having babies. It's their access to higher education. Now, I'm not saying that we need a fertility rate of 4 or 5 or anything higher. 3 is okay. At least we need to get to 2.1 minimum. That's all I'm asking for, is 2.1 for a country, civilization. That's the minimum any society needs. Now, of course, this article says that the almost 50-year decline in fertility might be a temporary phenomenon or driven by deeper social changes. Of course, it was driven by deeper social changes. Do you know what happened in the early 1970s? Women gained access to higher education across the nation. And you know what? By allowing women to access higher education, they are choosing to go to school instead of creating and raising a family. If you don't believe me, go to a college town where I live. Ask the women there, why don't they have children? They say they're getting an education. They're not focused on families. They don't care. They don't care about their country or society unless it absolutely directly affects them. The only reason why the U.S. continually has a growing population is because of immigration, which is in itself not necessarily a bad thing. For the most part, it seems like immigration seems to be a side effect of women's access to higher education and promoting the quest for the eternal dollar. And this is where society, or individually you, gotta decide. Do you philosophically believe that everyone is equal? This is the crux of where we're at. Do you believe that everyone is equal? Do you believe that men and women are equal? If you do believe that men and women are equal, and you want to have a higher fertility rate so your country will hopefully survive, a fertility rate of 2.1, what are your solutions? More government intervention? That's the only answer I get from people who don't want to say, take away women's access to higher education. If you want more government intervention, then you're wrong. It's already been tried in Australia, Germany, Japan, South Korea, Romania, and even more countries. Government intervention cannot solve the lack of babies. You cannot pay women to have more children. It's a social issue that no one wants to realistically solve. You know? I hate to say it, but sometimes the supposed unthinkable option is the only real solution. I'm not saying I want to take away women's access to higher education, but it's the only realistic answer we have. I would love it if everyone could go to college and university, but that's not realistic. That's just not realistic. If you want to have a country that survives, you got to do whatever it takes to ensure survival. For example, some people think that it's religion that is the answer to a low birth and fertility rate. Some suggest, more religion would be great. And I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong, but religions, especially traditional religions, they're actually patriarchal. Have you actually read the Christian Bible? It's patriarchal. Most modern Christians don't read the entire Bible and conveniently leave out parts that don't sound nice in our modern egalitarian society. For example, they leave out parts saying that women shouldn't be leaders in church and should be quiet. Or in Proverbs 27:15-16, where the Bible states it is impossible to restrain a quarrelsome woman, or even in 1 Corinthians 7:38, where the Bible states that it's okay to marry a virgin, but you know what? It's even better to not marry in the first place. Look, the push for egalitarianism is a recipe for disaster. It will end Western civilization. I wish it wasn't true. I really do. I would like it if egalitarianism actually worked, but it doesn't. It's never worked. It hasn't worked in the past. It doesn't work presently, and it will never work. It's not compatible with human nature. Our country, the United States, and Western civilization is dying. But you know what? We have the answers to save them. We can save them. And you know what? In the end, feelings don't matter if we're talking about survival. Do you want to survive or do you not want to survive? Feelings don't matter. I would say, how about we survive? But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I'm Brazen Eagle. I hope you question your beliefs philosophically, and I hope you have a great, great day.